This is Pinky, an orangutan who liked me just a little bit too much. Pinky was 7 years old, which means as a female, she had just reached sexual maturity, and she was very excited to meet me. She started off very shy, and after about half an hour, Pinky was reaching, poking, prodding, grabbing, pinching, twisting, slapping, places that no person would ever do that. It was awful. I spent 2.5 hours just being absolutely molested by Pinky, while our camera crew laughed. Everybody just filmed it laughing, laughing, laughing. It's all funny until she tried to bite me. And then it was a little bit less funny. For me, they still thought it was hysterical. Let's see. I spent a whole bunch of time up in this tree. They left me in a tree for 4 hours to see what animals I could find. The only animal I really found was Simon, who stalked me and scared the crap out of me while I was in the tree. He crawled on his stomach through the brush, through the mud, through the prickers, everything else, just to pull a prank on me. It took him an hour to pull it off. Strongest man on earth. So my thoughts on orangutan deck is it is likely that it's an undocumented species. I think that there is something to be discovered there, just as Mike Morwood said. I think there needs to be more investigation into it. There's a man named Jeremy Holden who is the man to do this investigation. He has discovered more new species in that region than anyone else. He has found the skull-faced macaque. This is a real primate species. Looks like Voldemort, right? Found this. He is the first person to get photos of this animal. So I think that we need to fund this guy and get him out there to really find these creatures. He's a fantastic person. So just my closing thoughts. I am a biologist. I believe that I'm a cryptozoologist. I don't think the two are mutually exclusive. I think that cryptozoology can help with biology. Some of the research we did, that oarfish that I studied, was the first time that oarfish had ever gone through a CAT scan. And 3 different people have written their dissertations about the scan that we were able to do. So we do get to do some real science even when you're having fun. Biology doesn't have to be dry. Biology doesn't have to be guys in a lab coat. Biology can be fun and interesting, and you can go out in the wild and experience this kind of stuff. So I'm always out there exploring, and I just love to do all of this kind of stuff. So I would encourage everybody to go out in the wild. Don't be afraid. Do anything stupid, though. Don't try to grab any poisonous snakes unless you really know what you're doing. But just go out there and see these animals in their own habitat is so worth it. So, this is just to remind me. Thank you guys so much for bringing me here. People taught me earlier, I am terrible at languages. My wife and I have been together for 13 years. She's Vietnamese. I still can't speak any Vietnamese. But I just want to say, shukriya and Danevad. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. I really appreciate it. Thank you. So if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to take any questions. It is impossible to embarrass me. I would challenge you to try, so don't worry about that. Any questions?
Thank you, sir, for such an interesting insight into your adventurous world. So we would now like to take questions.
A very good afternoon, sir. My question is, do you feel fear whenever you search Bigfoot or Sasquatch or Yeti because they were killing humans? It's a myth or biological existence? I am confused now. So whatever you think about that, I want.
Absolutely. So Bigfoot, I think, is kind of tough. Bigfoot, I would never tell people that there's nothing behind it, because there are some really fascinating photos and some really interesting evidence. I've never researched it enough myself to really say my thoughts. Yeti, I believe, is most likely a different species of bear. I think there's probably a species of bear that lives in the Himalayas, that hasn't been really documented by science in a long time. A friend of mine, Harry Marshall from Icon Films, actually found a hair sample in the Himalayas that when they did a DNA analysis of it, they found that it was a polar bear that they believed had gone extinct about 10,000 years ago. But this was a recent sample, so they think the bear is still there. So I think that's most likely the Yeti. As to do I experience fear? Absolutely. I am afraid a lot of the time that I do this, but I don't let that fear stop me. I just try to push through it, and I try to realize that most of the animals are afraid too. So I just kind of go back to my knowledge of this, and usually what I'm afraid of are the people. The other people in the areas, or the traveling itself, the driving and stuff. But the animals, I think, it's just too much fun. Like I said, I used to run in the water after sharks, and I'd be scared, be going, I don't know why I'm doing this, but I just want to feel it. I just want to see what it feels like. So it's just pushing past that fear and keeping a healthy amount of fear. Realizing how dangerous these animals are and giving them more of a respect than a fear. I feel like with fear, people tend to act out on that fear and they might kill the animal, which is really unfortunate. So I think it's more giving it a healthy respect rather than fear. Thank you.
Hello, sir. Here. Have you ever been afraid of anything except Mongolian wrestling?
Have I ever been afraid of anything? Yeah, absolutely. I think so. The black mamba is the one snake that I don't want to work with ever. They are terrifying. Their venom's really strong. They live around people, and they will chase you. They are the only snake on earth that will chase you. So they're terrifying. But other than that, the main things that I'm scared of are parasites. Really, really freaked out by parasites. I have kind of an unhealthy fear of them. At one point in West Africa, I was infected with something called the Loa Loa worm. And the Loa Loa worm, if it grows to full maturity, you will actually see a worm crawl across your eye, which is just awful. So parasites really freak me out, and I try to do everything I can to avoid them. But any of the other animals, no, I just love it. Like I said, I've been bitten by everything. Black bears, rattlesnakes, pythons, a rabid raccoon, anything you can think of. Anyone else?
So what is it that keeps you going? I mean, why would you, aren't there times when you say, this is just it?
The one time when I really thought about throwing in the towel was just when all the skin was rotting off my feet in Sumatra. But then when you look back on it, that I now love that trip. I love thinking about that trip. I love how difficult it was. I love how I was able to prove to myself that I could do this, even under those tough conditions. So no, I never really think, I look at everything as an adventure. Everything in life is an adventure and an experience and something new to take in. And I'm so fortunate to be given the opportunity to do this. Having Nat Geo, being able to say that you're representing of Nat Geo, which is just such a phenomenal and well-respected organization, is such a gift and such a pleasure that I would never want to turn that down, and it opens so many doors that I feel like so few people get to experience this. The bullet ant ritual was awful. There's no ifs, ands, and buts about it. It was terrible. But I'm one of the few people who was able to do this, so I would never turn down the opportunity to do something that, that's afforded to me.
So these traditions that you've been...
Yep.
These traditions that you've been talking to us about, sir, why do you perform them? It's like, how essential is it to do these things in order to get these people to talk?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a very good question. So by going in there and by living as one of the tribe, the thought is just to show them that I respect their way of life. I'm not coming in and as an outsider. I'm not coming in and trying to tell them that they're right or wrong. Because you hear this, you see a lot of these shows when people go in and they try to discover the truth behind this. And really, the truth is whatever they need the truth to be. So my whole angle for this is just to go in and show respect and to be a part of them. And I feel like they'll open up more and they'll tell me more than they would tell someone else. They'll be a lot less guarded. And then they did. In Mongolia, when I drank mare's milk, which is this fermented horse's milk, well, it's a female horse. It's I actually asked them if it was horse's milk, and one guy said, no, if you're drinking horse's milk, you're drinking semen. He was like, you can have this if you want it, but it doesn't taste that good. Like, no, I'm okay, thank you. I will stick with the mare's milk. But when you drink that, it was awful. It was just really not tasty at all. But they give this, and once I drank the whole bowl, the person went, hey, all right, you're one of us. Come on over. And they just treat you so much better. The same thing in Brazil. Once I went to Brazil, once I did that ritual, they were very standoffish until I did the bullet ant ritual. And afterward, the chief came to me and he said, you're now one of us. The jungle is open to you. The jungle is now yours. You're welcome to come back anytime. You can live with us. And they would tell me these legends. So by participating in those rituals, you gain their trust.
A very good afternoon, sir. So going to a lot of places does make you follow a lot of traditions, how people are there. And you talked about Brazilian Amazon. I have a question which is very specific to that region. there is a lot of tribes and they have this traditional beliefs of shamanism and stuff like that. So have you ever like took part in such a ceremony? And if you did, what were your experiences? Like what in general do you think about the myths that these people develop? Are they true? And how does it affect you to a spiritual level?
The myths, I'm sorry, I didn't hear you exactly well. Did you say the myths in different parts of India?
I'm talking about like the Amazon, like you talked about Amazon. So they have this special ceremony of drinks, like ayahuasca ceremony or something. Like have you ever encountered such a ceremony? And the myths that these people develop, and how does it affect you at a spiritual level? That's what I'm asking.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to see. So you're asking when I go in here, how do these myths develop? How do people get them? Where do these kind of stories and legends come from? I think it's different in every group. It really is. These myths are essential for daily life in these different tribes. It's kind of their explanation for unexplainable events, like Mokele Mbembe, the dinosaur that I was with in West Africa. You know, it's when somebody disappears, a lot of the fishermen there can't swim. So if their canoe tips over, they would drown and they would die. But that's not a nice story. That's not something that anyone wants to hear. They really love these fishermen. They respect them. This is the big, strong fisherman who provides food for the village. So when they don't come back, well, they couldn't have just drowned because they were too strong. They were too good to all of us. So it had to be Mokele Mbembe. It had to be this massive animal that took them out. Or, in the Gobi Desert, this creature, well, you have to be afraid of this creature because the desert is a really scary place. And you don't want kids wandering out into the middle of the Gobi on their own. So you have this legend, this creature that's necessary to prevent these other things from happening. So all of the myths are based in some truth, and most of them are based on real animals. So I do think that in some cases there is a real animal behind it. I would never discount the fact that I think Caddy, for instance, in Canada, I really think there's a real animal there. Orang Pendek, I think there's a real animal that's undiscovered, a real primate species that we need to find. But some of them I think are based on other known animals. Yep.
Sir.
Yep.
What is the most life-threatening situation you've been in, apart from the driving?
Apart from the driving, I was bitten by a rabid raccoon at one point, and rabies is not something that you want to mess with. So that was pretty scary. I had a huge raccoon come over and bite me. It latched onto my arm, kind of ripped a big chunk out of me. I had to go to the hospital and get 14 shots that day. So I had to get shots all in my arm where all the bites are. Then I had to get shots in my butt and in my arms, and all 14 in that day. It was the nurse's first day on the job. The nurse, this was her very first day. She'd never given people shots before, and she gets me. She has to give 14. So as she's giving me the shots in the arm, you have to swirl the shot around so it really covers the entire bite. So as she's doing that, she was hitting the bone, and I was kind of flinching because it hurt really bad. So she realized that she was hurting me, and she started crying. So I started rubbing her back and going, "You're doing a great job. Don't worry. Just calm down. It's okay." So after that, shots don't bother me anymore. But that was probably that was the one where I really definitely would have died if I didn't get treatment.
Sir?
Yes.
Yeah. Sir, what's with the pictures of the death worm in Mongolia? So you said the slide next to it said that they might be based on some other creatures, but there were 4 photos in one slide, which one among them was a created drawing, but 3 other of them seem to be true pictures. So are death worms actually there in Mongolia, or
Yeah, so these were real creatures that are found around the Gobi. There's a giant grub, which I think is very likely a source of the myth of the Mongolian worm, or the story behind the Mongolian death worm. A giant grub is something that would then become a beetle. And we found a whole bunch of beetles, and when I started digging in the sand, it really wasn't what I expected. I expected desert, super dry, lots of sand. And parts of the Gobi were definitely like that. But other parts of the Gobi were lush wilderness, forests, trees, shrubs, plants, and dirt underground. When I dug underground, I did find moisture, and it would support grubs. There's also amphispinas. Amphispinas are a type of reptile, like a legless lizard kind of thing. And they burrow through the sand, and they look kind of like what the death worm is described. There's also sand boas, which is a snake that is found in the Gobi Desert, another odd-looking snake that burrows through the sand. And then there's mole crickets, just a burrowing animal that, you know, the nomads really don't dig. They don't dig very often at all. So when I was digging, you know, looking for this stuff, I found a mole cricket. They had never seen one before. Never seen one. They said, no, 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 don't touch it, don't touch it. I said, why? They said, I don't know, but it looks dangerous. So I think that just any of these burrowing animals could be a source for these legends. And they make up such incredible legends and myths, like the snake that shoots through the camel or the little lizard that eats babies. I mean, they have these great myths around all these known animals that it just kind of makes sense to a scientific mind. The death worm would also be a known animal. But then again, I mean, there are electric eels that electrocute people. There are poison dart frogs that kill just from their skin. There are horned lizards that shoot blood out of their eyes. So these traits aren't unknown to nature. So again, I'm never going to write it off. I'm never going to tell them that they're wrong, but just looking at it, you know, kind of from an outsider, I think it's probably one of these other creatures just being misidentified. Have I seen the death worm?
Yes.
No. We didn't. We never saw we didn't see it. No. I did have a trap that was triggered. We set this trap in the sand. I dug for all day in the baking sun of Mongolia and had a trap that was supposed to catch a burrowing animal. And the trap was triggered, but then part of it collapsed and the animal was able to escape. So we don't know what that was in there. But I'd be very surprised if it was a death worm.
I'm really sorry to say, but because of the time constraint, we'll have our last question right now.
Have you yet filmed in India, and do you know about any particular tradition or myth that you find interesting?
I have never filmed in India, unfortunately. I would very, very much love to. I really need to go to the region. Again, I will butcher languages, and I apologize. Arunachal Pradesh is the region that I most want to visit in India, and I think it has some really fantastic legends. There's supposed to be a tribe up there that I would really love to experience and go and live with. Someone earlier was just telling me about one of the islands where there's Adaman Islands, where there's again, sorry, I really apologize. My language skills are so bad. When I try to speak Vietnamese, whenever I say thank you, I say salty fish. So please, I apologize if I'm saying horrible things. But yeah, there's a few different tribes in India that I would love to go live with, and a lot of different legends, particularly the Yeti. I think it's fascinating, and I'd love to explore that. Most people think of it in Nepal, but there are stories of it from India as well as other hominids, other type of Bigfoot-like creatures in India that I think are fascinating, and I'd love to really dig into it and experience it more. And I just love this country. I love how diverse it is. I love how many languages there are and how many different types of food, and how it's different from one region to the next. And it's just fascinating. And as much time as I get to spend here, I just leave with more questions than I came with, and I leave with more of a desire to come back. So thank you, everybody, very, very much.